So, Roger, thanks for taking some time to spend with Cool Leaf and Great Retention today.
It's my pleasure.
I'm Prem Bhatia. I'm co-founder at Cool Leaf and host of the Great Retention. So we're excited to join with Roger Barnett today, and he's the CEO of MessageGears. Roger is also a fellow Emory alum, so we have that connection. And go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
Do you want to give us a quick intro on who you are and where you came from?
Yeah, I'd love that. I have been in Atlanta for 30 years this month. I moved out of undergrad. I got an electrical and computer engineering degree from undergraduate school and wrote code for a few years and decided to go back and get my MBA at Emory.
Yeah.
So proud Goizueta alum at Emory University.
So tell us a little bit about when you got into the startup world, what brought you to MessageGears? Like, how did the journey lead to MessageGears ultimately for you?
Well, I started a company in early 2004, and we combined with another called Search Ignite. We combined with another Atlanta-based business that was in digital marketing called 360i. And we ended up selling that business to a firm in New York, but I ended up staying there until late 2016. So it was a long run for me, but I was running the technology division of that business and really felt like I was running the business I started the entire time. And so we grew that to an Atlanta-centric global business with, we had about 500 people and we're over 100 million revenue. And I was president of that company, but it was time for a variety of reasons to look for a new opportunity. And I wanted to run an Atlanta-based growing software company. And I looked around, lots of networking and lots of conversations with entrepreneurs and CEOs and private equity folks, and landed through a board member of MessageGears, John Howlett, introduced me to Dan Roy, who the founding CEO of MessageGears, and we hit it off. And awesome. After about a month or two, he invited me to join, and I was happy to do so.
That's great. So you've been here, just remind
about
me.
6.5 years. Started in November of 2016.
Tell us a little bit about the team here.
Well, the team is great. I was excited about two things when I started. Now, we were much smaller. Today, we have about 150 people. Mm-hmm. We were probably about 10 people when I started. And I love the founding team, and I love the technology. It's not often that you have a technology that is truly differentiated in the market in which you're selling. And MessageGears, for a small company, had something that was very groundbreaking and had proof from very big customers like Expedia that was using it and loved it. So I was excited to take, my previous experience of growing and scaling software companies and taking that to a business that had a great technology foundation and a great team as well. So right now we have, one of the founders is still in a leadership position here. Taylor Jones is our chief customer officer, and he's great and does all things customer facing. We have, done a great job hiring to have a chief revenue officer who is actually an Atlanta-based professional, Matt McKernan. Mm-hmm. He came from Nice Software, and I was really focused on hiring somebody with experience of selling really big deals. And that's what he did there and led multiple teams doing that. Natalia Dickey is our new chief marketing officer, and her right hand is Will Devlin, who was here when I started, and Will's our VP of marketing and does a fabulous job. And Craig Pohan was my CTO at Search Ignite and Ignition One. So we've worked together now almost 20 years, and he's runs our technology and product teams.
Very cool. I know some of those names, so that's great. I know. So when you think about your team today and kind of what you're putting together for the future, tell us a little bit about how does culture fit into your plan for MessageGears? How important is it? What's the relevance of culture?
I think culture is the most important part of building and growing and scaling a business. And I say that with the awareness that every company has a culture. Um, so CEOs that decide culture isn't one of their priorities um, are deciding that they're not going to focus on a part of their business that's important to everybody's day-to-day working job and
Yeah.
environment. And there's no right culture. There are companies that are extremely successful that have cultures that I wouldn't want to work in or lead, but it works for them. I think the main thing about culture is being purposeful about it. For a leader to say, what kind of business do I want to lead? And that I can consistently lead and provide expectations for existing employees and prospective employees. But this is the kind of environment you can expect. This is how you will be managed, and this is your opportunities for growth. And here's what your day-to-day environment looks like. And because creating expectations and managing and working with like-minded people, I think is the most important thing because you you want to work. You spend so much of your waking hours with your colleagues, either in person or virtual, and you want to work with people who you trust and who you respect, and you're all kind of rowing the boat in the same direction. So I think culture is massively important, whatever business you're working or leading.
Yeah. And where does it start when you think about the hiring process? Um, how does it start for you all in that identification of candidates and then fit into culture? Tell us a little bit about how you determine that.
We were a pretty small company when I started, and like I say, we had about 10 people. But the first offsite, executive strategy offsite we spent most of our time talking about culture. Um, I was expecting and planning to grow a very big business. We're still on that trajectory and have a long way to go. But um, if we were going to grow, I wanted internally, first of all, to set expectations for the kind of company that we were going to run and lead and grow. And so over the course of a day and a half, we established 9 core values of the kind of business we want to run and the kind of business we want to grow. And those are still our 9 values today. We had a company meeting yesterday. I went through all 9, talked about why they are important to us. Um, to answer your question directly about new hires, I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, during the hiring process, we go through these 9 values. Say, this is MessageGears. This is who we are. Is this the kind of environment you want to work in? Because this is how you will be managed. This is how you will be judged on performance based on how you're. In fact, we have quarterly reviews with our, we call them check-ins, quarterly check-ins with our employees. And we talk about core values and which values, the employees most exude. Um, so it's from the very beginning of the relationship with prospective employees. We talk about who we are and ask if this is the kind of environment they want to work in.
Mm-hmm. Do you think companies that don't have core values or can't name those core values from an employee standpoint, how does that differentiate from those that really understand those core values?
I think something you said is very important. Can't name their core values. Not every company that has a sense of self has explicit values. I think it's very helpful, and I would recommend that. It doesn't have to be 9. 9's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think most companies, and probably a best practice, is having 4 or 5. But having a sense of who you are and reminding your employees of that. And nothing gives me greater joy than when I'm walking down the hallway or I'm in a meeting and somebody else points out, well, that's not exhibiting one of our values, or we're biased towards action is one of our values. And we're leaving a meeting, somebody says, we need next steps,
Yep.
And who's going to own that?
Yeah.
So those types of things make me, put a smile on my face. I think that it's easy for a company to lose their way as they grow. As employee number 100 gets hired versus employee number 8 gets hired, expressing what maybe were unsaid values and everybody worked, but when the company gets bigger, I think it needs to be more explicit.
Mm-hmm. Are you all thinking about those values changing, or is it something that you consider kind of static for, do you evolve those values over time, or is that something that you typically will stay on point with?
It's a great question. We have not changed them in over 6 years.
Yeah.
Really not a word. We talked about as an executive team earlier this year, we have this theme in 2023 about striving for excellence. We raised a big round of funding in December, and we acquired a business in December as well. We're at a really fun but pivotal point in the arc of our company history where we have the resources and the foundation really to do anything we want. Instead of a scrappy, undercapitalized software startup where you do the best you can with what you have and the resources you have, we have resources, we have people, we have unbelievable customers. It's just about execution and really taking advantage of our potential now. And so the theme for this year, and we talk about it over and over with the employees, is striving for excellence. We need to be great. We have the potential to be great. And so we need to strive to do that. There was some internal discussion about, do we add that to our core values? We haven't yet. I think that it's the kind of thing that might be added in the future. But I think it's reflective of how we haven't changed them, and they work so well. We're hesitant to add and take things away. So for now, when we have a new theme, it's just that, a theme where our underlying core values support that.
Yeah. So when you think about culture and the companies that you looked at to kind of model MessageGears culture, because I think every company at a certain stage kind of looks to the companies at the next stage and says, like, where they are is where we want to kind of be from a culture standpoint. This is how, not necessarily in your space, but prototypical example of, like, you're trying to model after somebody. Which companies like kind of come to mind for you?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that I had any particular companies in mind. There's certainly CEOs I respect, including local, growing businesses in Atlanta that had software leaders at happy employee bases and growing rapidly, that we certainly looked at their core values and their mission statements. But, I have 25 years experience of growing businesses, some of them much larger than we are today. And a lot of it was my own experience of running and leading businesses in the past and thinking about things I would want to do differently or better. And frankly, creating core values when we were 10 people is one of those things. When you have over 100 people saying, now we need to have an emphasis on culture, it's really hard to change culture at a company of any scale. But starting foundationally and being able to kind of mold the clay about the kind of business you want to create culturally is one of those things. There's lots of values like we assume goodwill. I think in a remote environment, that's really important, that you're not, that you assume that people that you work with are trying to accomplish the same goals you're trying to accomplish. They don't have to agree with you, but goodwill means that they're trying in earnest to solve the same problems you're trying to solve and have a difference of opinion. And if you assume goodwill, you can hash that out. If you assume that it's corrosive behavior, even if it's not, that creates real hardships on an organization to be productive. The second half of that value is we assume goodwill, but we are intolerant of corrosive behavior. Life's too short to work with people who drain you of energy, no matter how great of an individual contributor they may be to the company. So those types of things come, frankly, from previous personal experience that, in terms of the kind of business I wanted to create here.
Fantastic. You parting advice to founders that are starting and thinking about starting, for folks that are now, a lot of folks now are in the market that potentially weren't before, and also thinking about their entrepreneurial potential new journeys. And for those that are at the stages of 3, 4, 2, 3, 10 people, whatever it is, how would you advise them around culture and values from the beginning?
Well, I would say be very clear with yourself as a leader and founder of a business, of the kind of company you want to to lead and grow and think about that and be conscious and purposeful about that. Number one, um, being as transparent as you can be, as being as transparent as you're comfortable being, pushing that to the limit. I've found the more transparent I am with the company, the more I get out of my employees. Um, when they feel invested in what we're doing and know and better understand the reasons we make the decisions we make as a leadership team, um, the better off the company is in almost every single circumstance I've been involved in. I also say while culture is so important and we really track and monitor, Glassdoor and our employee ratings, we're very proud of the fact, if I could give ourselves a shout out, we were ranked by the Atlanta Business Chronicle #1 place to work 2 years ago, #3 place to work last year.
Nice.
We're very proud of those things. It it doesn't mean that you should not hold employees to high expectations. Um, we value our great employees and we have quantitative metrics on as much as we can for every employee that we have. And, one thing I would say to founders and business leaders is your A players want to work with other A players.
It's great. So thank you for your time today, Roger, and for joining us.
Oh, thank you. This is my
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thank you all.
All right, bye.